We are joined by VolQuest's Austin Price with lots to discuss in Knoxville as always. Good morning, Austin. How are you?
I thought you were going to introduce me as the 11-year NFL veteran.
Hey, you got the experience of it, Austin, man. Look, nobody will tell the difference if they didn't see you in person.
Hey, buddy, listen. They would tell the difference between you and I.
Fair enough.
No doubt about it.
Fair enough. Austin, has there ever been a more lovable psycho in the history of Tennessee athletics than Liam Doyle? What a scene last night at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Just how impressed were you with this team's ability to kind of get over the hump in series-deciding games, something they'd not been great at down the stretch this season?
You're right. I mean, I thought that was kind of the theme going into yesterday is Tennessee's had how many, winner-take-all game threes this year, and their record's pathetic, and, I thought they managed the pitching staff really, really well. They knew when to make the right changes last night when guys started to get hit a little bit, and, they obviously had that 7-run fourth inning that kind of fueled them. But you're right. I mean, the only thing missing last night was the scene from Major League 2 where they're like, it's him, crank it, Jerry. And then Wild Thing starts. And, you really miss Wild Thing when he came out of the bullpen because the fans could see it was him. And so and then the more fans got to notice it was him, and it was like, oh, man. And just the energy on his trot in from the bullpen was man, it was pretty special. And obviously he pitched lights out. The question is that we'll find out here in about 35 minutes or so, like, will Tennessee be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or will they be a Saturday, Sunday, Monday in terms of when the Super Regional is played? And obviously if it was a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, that gives him more time to rest, coming off of a 31-pitch performance last night, followed up his 98-pitch performance on Friday night.
Well, there's no doubt I think the Omaha Chamber of Commerce would rather Tennessee and Arkansas go separate places. That way they could both get
100%.
there. There's no doubt about that. But also, when you look at this team in 5 straight Super Regionals, just the job Tony Vitello has done, and this kind of being the floor, right, of this is just the baseline of what Tennessee has been over these past few postseasons. What about Tony Vitello just gives him the ability to kind of push these buttons, Austin, because we're seeing another team maybe peaking at the right time, regardless of what happens this weekend, and kind of that box being checked once again. Just Tony's ability to make that happen for this team this year again.
I don't know if they're peaking, but they obviously found a way this weekend. They're playing better. They still have some just mind-numbing plays, right? I mean, just the throwing error on Sunday from Dean Curley is one of those things where I watched the Vanderbilt game. I forget, were they playing Wright State? I forget who they were playing. And second baseman had caught just a missile off the kid from Wright State, and thought about trying to double up the guy, and he almost double and triple pumped, but ate the ball. Said it wasn't worth trying to throw over there. And sometimes Curley's got to understand that that's the right play. The hero play is just, it's low percentage play sometimes, and they have to eliminate that. Like giving a team a run or two that they shouldn't have because of just bad fundamental baseball. And those are the little things that still hold this team up. They're playing better right now than they played the back half of SEC play, but it's still those little things that put them in a bind, force games like last night instead of ending it on Sunday, could cost you a Super Regional at Fayetteville this weekend. But you hit the nail on the head. Omaha wishes those two teams were separated, especially with all the other upsets, right? And you got Duke playing Murray State. I'm sure Omaha would much rather have Tennessee and Arkansas separated, and one of them playing Murray State, one of them playing Duke, with a chance to get both than only one.
Austin Price with us is one of VolQuest's On 3. Austin, when you look at, I guess in today's game, you call the risk of having Liam Doyle come in and close that game out, man. One, what does that say about he and Tony Vitello's relationship? But also, Today's baseball, that's unheard of, having a guy come back not on his rest days. He on his rest days, man. But what does it say about his relationship he builds with those guys and Coach Anderson and the pitching staff, too?
Well, it just shows that, one, Liam is a ruthless competitor that at the end of the day wants to win. And the message to Tony was pretty clear. You could hear that from in his post-game comments last night. We didn't come here to not play, to not pitch, to not do whatever is necessary to make a run. And that was on his mind. He wanted the ball. And I think Tony probably would have had to fight him if he hadn't given him the ball. And so I was a little bit surprised at 10-5, or at the time, 11-5. He left him out there for the ninth. But I guess, because they never really had anybody warming up. It wasn't like they had like someone out there warming up and, was ready to come in if he, were to go too many pitches in the ninth. I mean, he was out there and was going to pitch, and so he throws 31 pitches, and was throwing gas. I mean, 99, 99, 98, 93. I mean, he was moving it, and, I don't think this affects him for this weekend. I mean, no matter what day they start on, I mean, you could always throw Marcus Phillips out the jump. You did that the first time around in Fayetteville, and you won the game. Mm-hmm. And everybody thought, okay, this is going to be the series Tennessee finally wins. They won game one without Liam Doyle. Now you have him coming back in game two, and then Tennessee dropped Saturday dropped Friday and dropped Saturday because that was a Thursday through Saturday series to end the regular season. And, Tennessee, I think Tennessee's going into this series with no pressure. The defending champs have no pressure. Arkansas is the team that is playing really good baseball. Mm-hmm. They're playing at home. They won this series just a couple of weeks ago against Tennessee. But they're also the team that has failed to make it to Omaha and choked it up in regionals and super regionals the last handful of years. So to me, they're the ones with the pressure. Tennessee has no pressure.
Austin Price with us this morning. Austin, man, the level of play from underclassmen like Manny Marin, what a jolt that was, man. But it also speaks on the level of talent that Tony Vitello's recruited to come and play in Knoxville, too, man. They don't win that game if it wasn't for Manny, I don't think, and the spark that he gave. Austin, man, what kind of young man is he, man? And what kind of, mentality you got to have as Tony Vitello to trust freshmen in those modes right there?
Well, I mean, he's been Tennessee's third baseman really the back half of SEC play, and it's kind of just been coming along, and obviously the 3-run homer last night was pivotal, Ramon. To kind of put Tennessee just taking the lead on that wild pitch 3-2. He goes yard with a 3-run homer and makes it 6-2, and of course we all know what Fisher did after that. I really, I feel like some of the players, even a guy like Levi Clark is starting to round into form, as we head into this Super Regional in Fayetteville.
Mm-hmm. Austin Price of VolQuest's on 3, our guest. You follow him on Twitter at Austin Priceless. Austin, switching gears on the football recruiting front, a Big Orange barbecue happening in Knoxville over the weekend. I love the different names we give all these events nowadays and 2025 recruiting. But there is one name that Vols fans know very well, and that is the last name Whitten. Cooper Whitten, making a lot of people feel old. Old enough to not only be a recruit, but a mighty good one. Where does Tennessee stand with him so early in his recruitment, and what is he as a prospect? How good is this kid already?
Well, he's very highly thought of, coveted, going to likely end up as a 5-star or a high 4-star, depending on the service you look at. And the kid has got great instincts. He runs extremely well. He's explosive. He's powerful. And all that stuff resonates at the college level. It resonates, beyond that. And he's a smart kid. Where does Tennessee stand? I think Tennessee's obviously right there at or near the top. I mean, I think he's very conscious to, really push don't just assume I'm coming to Tennessee because my dad went there. Mm. Now, I hear that a lot from legacy kids, and it's rightfully so. They're their own person. They have to be treated as such. Just because dad went there doesn't mean they're automatically going to go there. But Tennessee's not recruiting him like that. Tennessee's recruiting him as if his name is Cooper Smith.
Right. Sure.
Cooper Johnson, like just a very like generic name, not Whitten. And I think not having Dad and Mom here this weekend, they had a wedding to go to, and he was by himself, and he hung out with the Pieces, Robert Peace and JP, who obviously just picked up an offer from Tennessee a couple of weeks ago. I think that helped a lot because he got to kind of see Tennessee through his lens and not through his dad's lens. And when he's walking around, everybody's coming up to Jason going, "Hey man, I just watched you. You were awesome, great man, JP, or Cooper. Look at your dad's just a man." Da 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 da. He didn't have to deal with any of that, and I think that was great. And I think I don't know if the wedding was just happenstance or it was a nice buffer. Either way, I think it worked out perfect because I think Tennessee exits the weekend, having really knocked it out of the park with Cooper. Cooper will be back for a game this fall, in my opinion, and then they'll go from there. I think Tennessee's in a good spot, but again, I don't think you can just assume because he's Jason's kid that he's definitely coming to Tennessee. But Mom loves the Vols. Jason obviously played here. He loves the Vols. So ultimately, I think Cooper knows deep down where his mom and dad would love for him to go, but he's got to come to that decision. And so recruiting him, as if his last name's not Whitten, helps get to that point. And so Tennessee's done a really nice job to this point of recruiting him. And others are not going to go away. They're going to continue to swing. The only way I see him not coming here is if he just says, I've lived in Texas my whole life. I want to stay in the state of Texas. If he leaves the state, I'd be stunned if it's not Tennessee. Again, I think that's the only way that it doesn't end up being Tennessee in the end is if he chooses to stay home in the state of Texas.
Austin, when you look at the other big fish in the pond for 2026, it seems like in the VolQuest's chat and the write-ups in the War Room, Savion Hyder is the new David Sanders for this class. Fair assessment to say he's kind of the big fish Tennessee is closest for and kind of going after. And what is the latest kind of in that Tennessee-Michigan battle as Tennessee still kind of rides that high of getting him on campus here a couple of weeks ago?
I told a national guy the other day, I used those exact words. I said, Savion Hyder is this year's David Sanders.
Yeah.
And the person I was talking to knew what I meant. Now, is Tennessee, is it done to Tennessee? No, not by a long shot. Right? Like this, David Sanders was a little bit further along in the process than Savion Hyder is currently at this point. But I think Tennessee, again, has done a tremendous job dating back to 1st of April to get him really zoned in on, Tennessee, to get him feeling Knoxville, feeling the university, feeling everything that surrounds Tennessee football to the umph degree. And so I like where Tennessee's at. I feel like right now, if I had to make a pick, it would be Tennessee. Michigan is not going to go away. To me, they are right there with the Vols. I mean, if it's percentages, it's, half a point, right? I mean, it's very close. Ohio State's not out of it. They're running in the 3-hole, in my opinion, but they're still in it. And then I think Georgia is a distant fourth. I don't think that they're a real contender here, as we said here in early June. So, Tennessee's done a great job, but again, they have to finish it out. And then when does he make a decision? That's the real question to me.
Sure.
Because there's a notion out there that he may wait till football begins. Well, I mean, that's a long time, and that goes against the norm. The norm now is everybody takes their visits in June and then commits late June, sometime in July. The exception to that are the few kids that hold out all the way until the football season.
No doubt about it. Austin, is there a trend, I guess, in this recruiting cycle? Right? It seems to be a little bit more offensive, and maybe I'm just wrong, too, but I know they got heavy focus on the offensive line, which you have to. I know Darius Gray, if I'm not mistaken, is taking his OV this upcoming weekend. What do you know about him as a prospect, and just how do you see this class going as far as a focus this time around, this summer?
Yeah, I think, it's a mixture. It's not heavily defense, not heavily offense. I mean, you still have, some key players on both sides of the ball that you're trying to reel in. Obviously, I think probably the bigger names are on the offensive side. So, the Hyders and Tristan Keys, Darius Gray, you mentioned him. He'll be here this weekend. But then on the defensive side of the ball, you got Joel Wyatt, who will be here this weekend, from down there in the mid-state. So, I mean, there's plenty on both sides.
Okay.
Darius Gray is a really tremendous player. The question is, what is he at the next level? I know he sees himself as a tackle. Is he a tackle? You know, do all schools see him as a tackle? Or do they say, yeah, you're a tackle, and then when they get there, they're going to move him to guard? Because I think he can kind of play a little bit everywhere. I don't think he's a left tackle. I think he's a right tackle and a guard at the next level. Either way, I think he's a tremendous player. And, you know, LSU's deep in that one. Georgia, obviously, as well. Tennessee will get their shot this weekend. So Tennessee with a handful of visitors, and then it'll build even more the following week, and then that massive weekend of the 20th.
Austin, on the way out, Tennessee basketball hosting Dartmouth transfer Ryan Cornish on a visit, according to On3's Joe Tipton. A good three-point shooter, 17 points per game last year. Rick Barnes has got a pretty good track record of finding some of these guys, especially in June when it seems like the portal slowed down a little bit. How did this come about, and how serious you think Tennessee's interest there and Cornish's interest is there for Rick Barnes and the men's hoop side?
Well, obviously, interested enough to bring him in. Do I think anything will come of it? As of right now, I say no.
Okay.
But you know, we'll see. You know, all these prospects that come in for visits, or you know, kind of we'll see how do they mesh with the team. How does you know, their expectations for NIL alter what Tennessee's willing to give? Like, all that stuff can shift and change around, and it can be one thing 1 minute and another thing the next. But as of right now, as of 8:39 your time, 9:39 Eastern on this Tuesday, it doesn't feel like anything will go more than that visit.
Good stuff. Great info as always with Austin Price of VolQuest's on 3 at Austin Priceless, where you get him on Twitter, the very best covering Tennessee athletics. Appreciate you, sir. Good to talk to you, Austin.
I appreciate you guys.
Yes, sir. Austin Price with us here this morning, talking a little bit of baseball, basketball, and football.
A little bit of everything, man. Go around the horn. Get it?
Being in the mix, there you go, RIP, for a 5-star running back who's the number 11 player in the country, Savion Hyder, with Ohio State and Michigan. It's the kind of recruiting battle Tennessee's got to win more to get over the hump and beat an Ohio State or Michigan at the height of their powers. And you saw how big that gap was on their field in a playoff game last December.
That's what you're fighting up against.
It is. That's the tier you're starting to enter.
And also the conversation, can this team keep its shine minus the Nico situation too? I wonder how big that plays. Like Vols fans, I know we are, but like the pouring in the Joey Aguilar, George McIntyre, or Merklinger, like, you got to be heavy on that this year.
Right.
Because it needs it for recruiting. Just because, like, these little battles right here.
Sure. 615-737-1045 is our number as we wrap up hour 3 coming up.